the wedding, she called me fat pig. My son got furious and totally destroyed her. Prologue, the day everything changed. I should have known something was wrong the moment I saw Madison's face when I walked into the church. It was my son Daniel's wedding day, what should have been one of the happiest days of my life, and his bride-to-be looked at me like I'd just tracked mud across her white carpet. Her eyes swept over me from head to toe, lingering on my midsection, and her perfectly glossed lips pressed into a thin line of disgust. But then she smiled, that fake, pageant queen smile I'd seen her use dozens of times when she wanted to hide what she was really thinking, and turned back to fussing with her bridesmaids. I should have left right then, should have listened to that voice in my head telling me I wasn't welcome, that this day was going to be a disaster. But how could I? Daniel was my only child, my precious son, and I'd been looking forward to his wedding for months. So I took my seat in the third row, not the first row where the mother of the groom traditionally sits, because Madison had decided her extended family needed those seats, and I waited for the ceremony to begin. Everything went smoothly at first. The church was beautiful, decorated with white roses and soft candlelight. Daniel looked handsome in his tuxedo, his dark hair neatly combed, his face glowing with happiness as he stood at the altar. When Madison walked down the aisle in her elaborate designer gown, a dress that cost more than my car, she'd made sure to mention, she looked like something out of a fairy tale. They exchanged vows. They exchanged rings. The minister pronounced them husband and wife. Daniel kissed his bride, and everyone applauded. For a moment, I thought maybe everything would be okay. Maybe Madison would be a good wife to my son. Maybe I'd been worrying for nothing. Then came the reception. The venue was a country club on the outskirts of San Francisco, the kind of place where memberships cost 6 figures and the staff outnumbered the guests. Everything was perfect: elaborate floral centerpieces, a 12-piece orchestra, a 7-tier wedding cake that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. I sat at a table near the back with some distant relatives I barely knew, not at the family table. Madison had explained, sweetly but firmly, that the head table was only for immediate family and the wedding party. When I'd pointed out that I was immediate family, Daniel's mother, she'd smiled that smile again and said, "Of course, but there's just not enough room, and we want to make sure Daniel's father has a seat there." Daniel's father, my ex-husband, Robert, who'd left us when Daniel was 3 years old, who'd missed every birthday, every graduation, every important moment of Daniel's childhood, who'd suddenly reappeared 2 years ago when he heard Daniel had landed a high-paying job at a tech company. But Robert got a seat at the head table, and I got relegated to the back with third cousins twice removed. I told myself it was fine. Weddings were stressful, and Madison was probably just overwhelmed with all the planning. It didn't mean anything. I was so naive. Dinner was served, a 5-course meal that probably cost more per plate than I spent on groceries in a week. I ate quietly, making small talk with the relatives at my table, watching Daniel laugh with his new bride at the head table. He looked so happy. That's what mattered. After dinner, there were toasts. The best man told funny stories about Daniel in college. The maid of honor, Madison's sister, Courtney, gushed about how perfect Madison and Daniel were together. Robert stood up and gave a speech about fatherhood that made me want to scream, considering he'd been absent for most of Daniel's life. Then Madison stood up. "I just want to say a few words," she said, her voice carrying across the ballroom. She looked radiant in the soft lighting, every inch the perfect bride. "Daniel, you've made me the happiest woman in the world today. I can't wait to start our life together." Everyone applauded. Daniel beamed at her. "I also want to thank everyone who made this day possible," Madison continued. "My parents for their incredibly generous support. Courtney for being the best sister anyone could ask for. And of course, Daniel's father Robert for flying all the way from New York to be here." She paused. I waited for her to mention me, to thank me for raising Daniel alone, for working 2 jobs to put him through college, for being there for every scraped knee and broken heart and late-night phone call. "Now I know there's one person we should probably acknowledge," Madison said, and I felt a flutter of relief. She was going to mention me after all. Daniel's mother is here somewhere. She looked around the room as if she couldn't quite locate me. Her eyes passed right over my table. I'd stand up and point her out, but honestly, I'm worried she might have already left for the buffet table. A few people laughed nervously. I felt my cheeks flush. I'm kidding, of course. Madison's smile widened. But seriously, I do want to thank Carol for giving birth to Daniel. That's important, right? The whole carrying him for 9 months thing. More uncomfortable laughter. Daniel was looking at Madison with a confused expression, like he wasn't sure if this was supposed to be funny. I'll be honest, Madison continued, her voice taking on a different tone, something harder, meaner. When I first met Daniel's mother, I was a little surprised. I mean, Daniel is so fit and health conscious, and then there's Carol well, let's just say she clearly doesn't share those values. My stomach dropped. Where was this going? But you know what they say, you can choose your spouse, but you can't choose your family, right? Madison laughed, and a few people joined in, though most of the room had gone quiet. I just hope our children inherit Daniel's genes and not, well, you know. She gestured vaguely toward the back of the room where I was sitting, toward me. I mean, I don't want to be rude, she continued, though it was clear that's exactly what she wanted to be. But let's be real, nobody wants to end up looking like a fat pig, right? The room went completely silent. Fat pig. She just called me a fat pig, at her own wedding, in front of 200 people. I felt like I'd been slapped, my face burned. My hands were shaking, I couldn't breathe. And then I heard a chair scrape against the floor. Daniel had stood up. His face was red, not with embarrassment, but with fury. I'd never seen him look like that before, not once in his entire 32 years of life. What did you just say? His voice was low, dangerous. Madison blinked, her smile faltering. I was just joking, baby. Don't be so sensitive. You just called my mother a fat pig. Daniel's voice was getting louder. In front of everyone, at our wedding. I mean, Madison looked around the room, suddenly realizing that maybe she'd gone too far. Daniel, calm down. Everyone knows I was kidding. Your mom knows I was kidding. Right, Carol. Every eye in the room turned to me. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, frozen, tears streaming down my face. Mom, Daniel was moving now, walking away from the head table, pushing past the best man, heading toward me. Mom, are you okay? I shook my head. I wasn't okay. I would never be okay again. Daniel reached my table and took my hand. His eyes were blazing with anger, but when he looked at me, they softened. I am so sorry. I had no idea she would. His voice broke. Come on, let's get you out of here. Daniel, Madison's voice was sharp now, panicked. Where are you going? We haven't cut the cake yet. We haven't done our first dance. Daniel turned to look at his bride. I'm taking my mother home, the woman who raised me, the woman who sacrificed everything for me, the woman who actually loves me unconditionally, unlike some people. You can't just leave. This is our wedding. Watch me. And he did. My son, my beautiful, wonderful son, walked me out of that ballroom in front of 200 shocked guests, out of the country club, into the parking lot. He helped me into his car, still in his tuxedo, and drove me home. We didn't speak the whole way. What was there to say? But when we got to my small house, the modest 3-bedroom I'd bought 20 years ago with my teacher's salary, Daniel finally broke down. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I had no idea Madison was like that. I swear I didn't know. It's not your fault, I managed to say through my tears. I should have seen it. I should have protected you. Daniel, you can't protect me from everything. I should have protected you from that. He was crying now, too, this 32-year-old man in a tuxedo. Sitting in my living room like a little boy who'd scraped his knee. She had no right to talk to you like that. No right to humiliate you like that. What are you going to do? I asked quietly. Daniel looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. A coldness, a determination. I'm going to destroy her, he said simply. And he did. This is the story of how my son got revenge on the woman who called me a fat pig at their wedding. The story of how Madison's perfect life came crashing down. The story of how karma, with a little help from Daniel, made sure she learned a lesson she'd never forget. My name is Carol Mitchell. I'm 58 years old, a retired high school English teacher, and yes, I'm overweight. I've struggled with my weight my entire adult life. I've tried every diet, every exercise program, every weight loss trick in the book. Sometimes I lose 20 pounds. Sometimes I gain back 30. But I'm also kind. I'm intelligent. I'm a good mother. And I deserved better than to be humiliated at my own son's wedding by a cruel, shallow woman who couldn't see past her own reflection. This is my story, and Madison's downfall. To understand what happened, you need to understand Madison. And to understand Madison, you need to know how she and Daniel met. It was 2 years ago at a charity gala in San Francisco. Daniel had recently been promoted to senior software engineer at a major tech company, making more money than I'd ever dreamed of. The company had bought a table at this fancy fundraiser, and Daniel had been obligated to attend. Madison was there with her family, the Thorntons, old San Francisco money, the kind of people who summered in the Hamptons and wintered in Aspen. Her father, Richard Thornton, owned a successful investment firm. Her mother, Victoria, was on the board of half the cultural institutions in the city. Madison herself worked in marketing for one of her father's companies, though from what I could tell, that mostly meant attending parties and posting on social media. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Tall and slender with long blonde hair, perfect teeth, and the kind of face that looked like it belonged in magazines. She had style, grace, and the confidence that came from never having to worry about money or what people thought of her. Daniel was smitten immediately. He brought her to meet me after they'd been dating for 3 months. I'd made dinner, my famous pot roast with mashed potatoes and homemade rolls. Daniel had always loved my pot roast. Madison took one look at the spread on my dining room table and said, "Oh, I don't eat carbs or red meat. Do you have any quinoa?" I didn't have quinoa. I had pot roast and potatoes because that's what Daniel had requested when I asked what he wanted me to make. "Mom's pot roast is the best," Daniel said enthusiastically. "You should at least try it." Madison smiled that smile. "I'm sure it's lovely, but I have to watch my figure, unlike some people." She didn't look at me when she said it, but the implication was clear. That should have been my first warning sign, but I told myself I was being oversensitive. Maybe she was just trying to make conversation. Maybe I was projecting my own insecurities about my weight. Over the next few months, there were other small comments. Little digs that could be explained away as jokes or misunderstandings. "Daniel, does your mom always dress like that? I mean, maybe I could take her shopping sometime, help her find clothes that are more flattering." "It's so sweet that you still live in your childhood home, Carol. It must be nice not to care about keeping up with modern design trends." "Daniel tells me you were a teacher. That's adorable. My mother always says teaching is a wonderful profession for people who aren't really ambitious." Each comment alone seemed almost innocent, but together they painted a picture of someone who looked down on me, who thought I was beneath her, who couldn't understand why Daniel, successful, handsome Daniel, had come from someone like me. I tried to talk to Daniel about it once, about 6 months into their relationship. "Honey, are you sure Madison is right for you? She seems very different from you. Different values, different background." Daniel had laughed. "Mom, that's what makes it exciting. Madison has opened up this whole new world for me. I've been to gallery openings and charity balls. I've met incredible people. She's sophisticated and cultured, and she pushes me to be better." "But does she make you happy?" "Of course she makes me happy. Mom, I love her. I'm going to marry her." And he did. Proposed after dating for a year at some fancy restaurant where a single meal cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Madison said yes, of course. Not because she loved Daniel, I realize that now, but because he was successful and handsome and could provide the lifestyle she wanted. The wedding planning was a nightmare. Madison took over everything, barely consulting Daniel and certainly not asking for my input. When I offered to help pay for part of the wedding, I had some savings, could have contributed $5,000 or $10,000. Madison actually laughed. That's sweet, Carol, but this wedding is going to cost about $300,000. I don't think $5,000 is going to make much of a difference. $300,000. For one day, the amount made me physically ill. Besides, Madison had continued, my parents are paying for everything. They have very specific ideas about how they want this wedding to look, and they've hired the best planners in the city. I'm sure you understand. I understood perfectly. I understood that I wasn't good enough. My money wasn't good enough. My input wasn't wanted. The only thing Madison seemed to want from me was for me to show up, stay quiet, and try not to embarrass Daniel with my presence. I should have seen the warning signs, should have realized that someone who treated me with such casual cruelty wouldn't suddenly become kind and loving after the wedding. But I told myself it was just wedding stress, that Madison was young and maybe a little spoiled but would grow out of it, that once they were married and settled, things would get better. I was wrong about everything. The morning of the wedding, I'd gotten up early to get ready. I'd bought a new dress, a nice navy blue dress from Macy's that the saleswoman had assured me was flattering. I'd had my hair done at a salon. I'd even splurged on professional makeup. I'd looked in the mirror and thought I looked nice. Not beautiful like Madison, but nice. Presentable. Like a mother who was proud to see her son get married. But the moment I walked into that church and saw Madison's face, I knew. She took one look at me in my new dress and her expression said everything. You're fat. You're ugly. You're an embarrassment. The rest of the day had been a slow torture, building up to that moment at the reception when she'd finally said out loud what she'd been thinking all along. Fat pig. 2 words that would haunt me forever. But they would haunt Madison too, because she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated my son. Daniel stayed with me that night. Still in his tuxedo, he sat on my couch drinking tea. I didn't have anything stronger in the house, and staring at the wall like he was trying to process what had just happened. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Madison, her parents, the wedding planner, friends asking what was going on. Daniel ignored all of it. You should go back, I finally said around midnight. It's your wedding night. I'm not going back to her. Daniel. Mom, she called you a fat pig at our wedding, in front of everyone. His voice was hollow. How am I supposed to go back to someone who would do that? She was probably nervous. Wedding jitters. Maybe she had too much champagne. Stop making excuses for her. Daniel looked at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. You always do this. Someone treats you badly and you make excuses for them. You try to understand their perspective. You're too kind, Mom, too forgiving. What's the alternative? Being angry and bitter. The alternative is having some self-respect. The alternative is not letting people walk all over you. He set down his teacup. Do you know how many times Madison has said something mean about you? How many little comments she's made? I noticed a few things. I was too blind to see it, too caught up in this fantasy of having a beautiful, sophisticated wife. I didn't want to see that she was shallow and cruel. He ran his hands through his hair. God, I'm such an idiot. You're not an idiot. You fell in love. I fell in love with an illusion. The real Madison is the woman who stood up at our wedding reception and humiliated my mother for laughs. He stood up abruptly. I need to make some calls. At midnight. I have a lawyer friend who owes me a favor. I need to find out how quickly I can get an annulment. I felt my heart sink. Daniel, you can't throw away your marriage after one day because of something she said about me. Watch me. Over the next 3 days, Daniel refused to take Madison's calls. He stayed at my house, sleeping in his old bedroom, the one I'd kept exactly as he'd left it when he moved out for college, like a shrine to his childhood. He wore old t-shirts and sweatpants from his high school days. He barely ate. And he planned. On the 4th day, Madison showed up at my house. I answered the door to find her standing on my porch, still beautiful but looking uncharacteristically disheveled. Her eyes were red from crying. Her designer outfit was wrinkled. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Carol, please," she said, and her voice actually cracked. "Please, I need to talk to Daniel. He won't answer my calls. His office says he's taken time off work. I don't know where else to go." Despite everything, I felt a flicker of sympathy. "Madison, I know I messed up, okay? I know what I said was horrible. I was drunk and stupid, and I don't know why I said it. But I love Daniel. I love him so much. Please, you have to help me. You have to convince him to talk to me." Before I could respond, Daniel appeared behind me. "There's nothing to talk about, Madison." Madison's face lit up with desperate hope. "Daniel, thank God. Baby, please, can we just—" "I want a divorce." The hope died in her eyes. "What? We've been married for 4 days. And in those 4 days, I've realized what a massive mistake I made. I'm filing for divorce, or an annulment if possible." "You can't be serious." "Daniel, it was one comment, one stupid joke that went too far. You're going to throw away our entire relationship over that." "It wasn't one comment, Madison. It was months of comments. Months of you treating my mother like she was beneath you. Months of subtle insults and condescension that I was too blind to see." Daniel's voice was cold, controlled. "But I see it now. I see who you really are, and I don't want to be married to someone like that." Madison's expression changed. The desperate sadness morphed into something uglier. "Someone like what? Someone who tells the truth. Your mother is overweight, Daniel. That's just a fact. I was trying to be funny." "By calling her a fat pig." "It was a joke." "It was cruel. There's a difference." Madison looked at me, and for a moment I saw pure hatred in her eyes. "This is your fault. You're turning him against me. You've always been jealous of our relationship, always trying to come between us." "That's enough," Daniel cut her off. "My mother has been nothing but kind to you. She tried to welcome you into our family. She offered to help with the wedding. She made you dinner when you first met, and you treated her like garbage." "I—" "Get off my mother's porch, Madison. You're not welcome here. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings." "Daniel, please. Go, now." Madison looked between us, her face contorting with rage. "You're going to regret this, both of you. My family has connections in this city. My father knows people. You think you can just divorce me and walk away? You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Neither do you," Daniel said quietly. Madison turned and stormed off to her car, a brand new BMW her parents had given her as a wedding present. She peeled out of my driveway, leaving tire marks on the concrete. Daniel closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling slowly. "Are you okay?" I asked. "No, but I will be." He looked at me. "Mom, I need you to do something for me." "Anything." "I need you to tell me everything. Every mean comment Madison ever made to you. Every insult, every dig, every moment where she made you feel small. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with." So I told him. I told him about the comments about my weight, my clothes, my house, my career. I told him about the way she'd excluded me from wedding planning, relegated me to the back of the church, seated me away from the family table. I told him about the 1,000 small cuts that had bled me dry over the past 2 years. Daniel listened to all of it, his expression growing darker with every story. "I'm going to make this right," he said when I finished. "I'm going to make sure she pays for what she did to you." "Daniel, revenge isn't." "This isn't revenge, Mom. This is justice. There's a difference." And he was right. What Daniel did over the next few months wasn't petty revenge. It was strategic, calculated, and absolutely devastating. Madison Thornton had called me a fat pig at her wedding, in front of 200 people. My son was about to show her what happens when you mess with the wrong family. The divorce proceedings started immediately. Daniel hired one of the best divorce attorneys in San Francisco, a woman named Patricia Chen, who had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in court. "Normally, marriages this short can be annulled," Patricia explained at our first meeting in her downtown office. But Madison is going to fight it. She'll claim the marriage was consummated, that it was legitimate, that you can't just undo it because you changed your mind. I didn't change my mind, Daniel said. I discovered information about her character that I didn't have before the marriage. The public humiliation of your mother. Among other things. Patricia nodded thoughtfully. That's actually good. The more we can document Madison's pattern of cruel behavior, the stronger our case. California is a no-fault divorce state, which means we don't need to prove she did anything wrong to get the divorce. But it can affect things like asset division and spousal support. She wants spousal support, I asked, shocked. They were married for 4 days. She'll ask for it, and under California law, she might actually have a case, if Daniel earns significantly more than her. I do, Daniel interrupted. My base salary is $250,000 a year, plus stock options and bonuses. Madison makes about $60,000 from her nominal job at her father's company. Patricia raised an eyebrow. Nominal job. She's his daughter. The job is basically a way for him to give her spending money while claiming its salary. Daniel pulled out his phone. I have documentation of her actual job duties, which amount to attending about 5 hours of meetings per week and posting on the company's social media accounts. That's helpful. The more we can show that she's not genuinely employed, the weaker her claim for spousal support becomes. Patricia made notes on her legal pad. Now, let's talk about assets. What do you and Madison own jointly? Nothing, really. We never combined our bank accounts. The apartment we were renting is in my name only. The furniture is mostly mine from before we met. Wedding gifts. Still in boxes at the apartment. Good, we'll need to inventory those. Technically, they belong to both of you. Patricia looked up. What about the wedding itself? Who paid for it? Her parents. They spent about $300,000. Patricia whistled. They're going to want that back. They can want all they like. I didn't ask for a $300,000 wedding. That was all Madison and her mother. It's going to get ugly, Patricia warned. The Thorntons have money and connections. They're going to fight this tooth and nail. Let them fight, Daniel said calmly. I have something they don't have. What's that? The truth, and a really good lawyer. Patricia smiled. I like you, let's destroy them. Over the next 2 weeks, Daniel and Patricia built their case. They collected evidence of Madison's behavior, not just toward me, but toward others. Daniel reached out to people who'd known Madison before their relationship, and the stories they told were eye-opening. A former roommate from college. Madison once made another girl in our dorm cry because she said her clothes made her look like a homeless person. She could be incredibly cruel. A coworker from one of her previous jobs. She created a hostile work environment. HR was constantly dealing with complaints about her making fun of people's appearances or socioeconomic backgrounds. An ex-boyfriend. She broke up with me because I got laid off from my job, told me she couldn't be with someone who was financially unsuccessful. She's all about money and status. The most damning evidence came from Madison's social media. Before the wedding, she'd posted frequently about her relationship with Daniel. Patricia and Daniel went through 2 years of posts. And they found gems like, finally found a man who can afford my taste, blessed luxury upgrade complete. Proof that nerdy tech guys can be hot if they have the right girl to dress them. Project befriend before and after. Can't believe I'm marrying into a family with no vacation home. At least Daniel's salary makes up for it face with tears of joy slumming it love him anyway. And then there were her posts about me, thinly veiled but obvious to anyone who knew the situation. Wedding planning is so stressful, especially when you have to deal with people who don't understand elegant taste face with rolling eyes. Reminder, just because someone is family doesn't mean they have to be at every event. Sometimes you need to protect your vibe sparkles. Nothing says, I love you like completely redesigning your life and leaving behind everyone who doesn't fit your new aesthetic nail polish. Patricia compiled all of it into a document that painted a picture of Madison as shallow, cruel, and primarily interested in Daniel for his money and status. "This is gold," Patricia said, reviewing the file. "With this and the video of her calling your mother a fat pig at the wedding, we can make a strong case that the marriage was based on fraud, that she misrepresented her character and intentions." "Will that help with the annulment?" Daniel asked. "It might. More importantly, it'll help prevent her from getting any spousal support or share of your assets. We can argue that she married you under false pretenses, essentially conducting a form of fraud." The video of the wedding reception had gone viral, of course. Someone had filmed Madison's speech and posted it online. Within days, it had millions of views. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive of me and critical of Madison. What kind of monster insults their mother-in-law at their own wedding? This bride is disgusting. The mother looks like a sweet woman and didn't deserve that. I hope he divorces her. Nobody should stay married to someone so cruel. The way she said fat pig with that smirk, she's pure evil. Madison had made the mistake of responding to some of the comments, which only made things worse. People need to learn to take a joke. My mill knows I was kidding. Everyone is so sensitive these days, face with rolling eyes. Maybe if people spent less time being offended and more time at the gym, comments like mine wouldn't hit so close to home person female. Patricia added screenshots of these comments to our file. "She's burying herself. Keep in mind, Daniel, that everything we're collecting can be used in court. The more she talks, the worse she looks." But Madison wasn't the only one fighting. Her father, Richard Thornton, hired his own team of expensive lawyers. Within days, Daniel received a letter demanding that he pay the Thorntons back for the wedding expenses. $300,000, Daniel read aloud, sitting in my kitchen. "They want me to reimburse them for the wedding because I abandoned Madison." "Can they do that?" I asked. "They can try, but Patricia says it's unlikely to hold up in court. Wedding gifts from parents are generally considered gifts, not loans, unless there's a written agreement otherwise." Daniel set down the letter. "This is just the beginning. They're going to throw everything they have at me to try to intimidate me into settling." "Maybe you should settle," I said quietly. "Maybe this isn't worth all the stress and legal fees and—" "Mom, stop." Daniel took my hand. "This is absolutely worth it. Madison humiliated you. Her family is trying to bully me. I'm not going to back down just because they have money and lawyers. I have money and lawyers too. And more importantly, I have the truth on my side." He was right. Daniel's tech salary had made him quite comfortable financially. He could afford to fight this battle. But I worried about the emotional toll it was taking on him. He'd lost weight. He wasn't sleeping well. He threw himself into work during the day and legal strategy at night. "You need to take care of yourself," I told him. "I will, after this is over." He smiled grimly. "Besides, I'm actually enjoying this in a weird way. Madison thought I was just some naive tech nerd she could manipulate. She has no idea who she married." "Who did she marry?" "Someone who doesn't give up, someone who fights for the people he loves, someone who learned from the strongest woman he knows." He squeezed my hand. "You raised me to stand up for what's right, Mom. That's exactly what I'm doing." Tears filled my eyes. "I'm so proud of you." "Don't be proud yet. Wait until you see what I have planned." And that's when Daniel told me about phase 2 of his plan. Because divorcing Madison and winning in court wasn't enough, Daniel wanted to make sure that Madison learned a real lesson, that she understood actions have consequences, that her cruelty toward me and toward everyone else she'd looked down on over the years would come back to haunt her. He wanted to destroy her reputation, the same way she'd tried to destroy mine. And he knew exactly how to do it. Daniel's plan was elegant in its simplicity. Tell the truth. Share Madison's real character with the world. Let people see who she really was beneath the beautiful exterior and designer clothes. "I'm going to write an article," he told me one evening. "A detailed, factual account of our relationship, the wedding, and the divorce. I'll publish it online where it can't be taken down or censored." "Is that legal?" "As long as I stick to the truth, yes. I'm not going to lie or exaggerate. I'm just going to share what actually happened." "Madison will be furious." Good, she should be furious. Maybe it'll teach her something about how her actions affect other people. Daniel spent 2 weeks writing and revising his article. He had Patricia review it to make sure there were no legal issues. He included screenshots of Madison's social media posts, quotes from people who'd known her, and a detailed account of the wedding reception incident. The article was titled, "What I Learned About Character When My Bride Called My Mother a Fat Pig at Our Wedding." He published it on Medium, a popular online publishing platform. He shared it on his social media accounts. He sent it to several online publications that focused on relationships and social issues. Within 24 hours, it had gone viral. Within 48 hours, it had been shared over 1 million times. Within 72 hours, Madison Thornton had become one of the most hated people on the internet. The article was powerful because Daniel didn't attack Madison. He simply told the story. I met Madison 2 years ago at a charity gala. She was beautiful, sophisticated, and unlike anyone I'd ever dated before. I come from a modest background. My mother was a public school teacher, and I was the first person in my family to go to college. Madison came from wealth and privilege. I thought,